Welcome to the Distilled Bourbon Podcast and a very packed turret today. We're glad to have you back. Fellas, it's good to see you. You guys know my co-host, Aaron, Chuck, and if you don't remember this guy, his name is Brian. He's the busiest man on the planet. He hasn't been here the last couple of episodes, but
forever.
Buddy, it's good to have you back in the turret.
Seems like May or June last time I got together with you guys. I
went to your new store in Owensboro today. It was it's coming along. It's getting there.
Slowly but surely, it's getting there.
Yeah. So it's on Frederica.
Yep. Close by Chick-fil-A. Everybody knows where Chick-fil-A is.
Everybody knows where Chick-fil-A is. So that's going to be a great store. Good to see you. Also was at Cap and Court today. So
got to see you for lunch today as well. Yeah.
So I'll take my 10% kickback at any point to mention those.
Is it 10? I thought it was 5. I agreed on 5.
Okay. We'll talk about that later. So listen, we have some fantastic guests with us today. Aaron, do you want to introduce our guest today?
Absolutely. So we have Zach Hargis, president of Silkvelvet Whiskey, and we have Jacob Call, Master Distiller at Western Kentucky Distilling Company. And today we're going to talk all things Silkvelvet. So, Chuck, I'll turn it over to you and let you start off with the questions.
Well, I've been super excited about this. I've been aware Silkvelvet is a legacy brand. It was from our hometown, Henderson, Kentucky, about 4 blocks from where I've lived for the last 40 years. I even was able to find an old Silkvelvet unused label that I framed and have next to my bourbon cabinet. Cool. Then I heard that Zach's brother had come into possession. Maybe it was really your dad, but it sounded to me like your brother had come into some Silkvelvet memorabilia. And I texted him. I said, "Zeb, man, I'd love to see this." And he said, "Yeah, we'll do that." But then something even more exciting happened. So tell the story of Silkvelvet, please.
Yeah. So Silkvelvet came into my lap actually perusing my dad's antique shop. So we were out one day out at the shop, and he said, "Hey, I come across this cool memorabilia," and I had just started in the bourbon industry myself. So he's like, "You've got to see this." And he's been a history guy. If you know Mark Hargis, he's a history guy all the way through. So he comes and shows me these bottles, and they were all pre-prohibition Silkvelvet bottles. He had the old labels. He had the old prescription receipts.
Nice.
It just a whole collection, as well as other Henderson bottles and things that he had bought. And he looked at me and he said, "Zach, wouldn't this be cool to bring this back?" And I'm looking at him, if you know my dad as well, he's an idea man through and through. And I was like, "Yeah, this would be cool to bring back." And I went home that night, and it just kept replaying in my head. And I was like, that would be cool to come back. As you see with the label, it's just a beautiful label. The original labels and all. So, and I ended up calling my brother that night, and I said, "Hey, Dad showed me these bottles. They're really cool. I'm going to go in tomorrow, and I'm going to do some research. I'm going to see some things." So we actually went back, perused the trademark sites to see how, and luckily enough, it was available. So jumped right on it, ended up calling him and said, "You'll never believe this, but it's available." Had some help with some guys at work. Jacob and my good friend J.D. Edwards as well. They knew day one that we were going to try to get this. So it started in the antique store, and we ended up giving him the present at Christmas. As a Christmas present, the trademark, and said, "Hey,
wow.
we have we've applied for this. It's not done yet, but this is where we're going." And I think we spent the whole Christmas talking, "Hey, how do we make this day happen?" And that was Christmas of 2020, and here we are in 2024, and 2 weeks post-launch, and I'm still pinching myself that we made this happen.
A hell of a Christmas present. You kind of set the bar high for the rest of it.
I don't think we're ever going to be able to top this. That's for sure. So, yeah.
Now, to be sure, Silkvelvet, it was not an obscure brand.
No.
It was advertised in newspapers back in the 1880s, 1890s, 1900s. Mm-hmm. Jacksonville, Florida, Texas, someplace out in Arizona.
Yeah.
Liquor was advertised in newspapers a lot back in those days, and Silkvelvet was widely.
What a great name, man!
It is a great.
If you're thinking bourbon, Silkvelvet it just kind of describes it, doesn't it?
So I think Silkvelvet started. Colonel A.S. Winstead started in 1870s.
So yeah, the story is I mean, really deeply rooted in Henderson. So Colonel A.S. Winstead, he married a lady called America Worsham.
I love that.
A great name. I think it's about the best name you can have. But he married her, and her dad was a distiller and ran the Worsham distillery at the time. So he, got into the family and was like, "Hey, I'd love to learn." And so, and right now, Chuck, if you can help me, I'm blanking on his name. Do you remember
Elijah Worsham?
Elijah Worsham? Yes.
Was that his father-in-law or brother-in-law?
I think it was his. I'm not 100% sure.
I think it might have been his brother-in-law, and I think they actually started out in the wholesale liquor business in Henderson.
Yeah.
And one of the other of them started a distillery on one side of the railroad tracks here, and the other started on the other side of the railroad tracks, within sight of one another. And the old Worsham distillery eventually became Kentucky Peerless, which was reborn by Henderson's
Corky
Taylor up in Lexington, and they've done very well.
Very well. Recent Hall of Fame inductee as well. So I mean, we love Corky. He's good. I mean, he led this resurgence of bourbon, the spotlight on Henderson. So we're all following his footsteps on that. But yeah, so he was with his brother-in-law and I guess learned the craft through there. And then one day he finally decided, you know what, I want to do this myself. And he had some grand ideas, and sure enough, he went and opened up the distillery, the Winstead Distillery, at the very tail end of Center Street here in Henderson, right by the railroad tracks. The property is still there. Unfortunately, the distillery is not. It burned down.
It did.
Late
1950s.
Yep. So at the same time as the grandest hotel in Western Kentucky region, I think burned down as well. So or that might have been the first time it burned down. So
now, by the time it burned down, it had been not a distillery since the 19-teens.
Yeah.
It ceased production, and then of course Prohibition. I think maybe it was being used for tobacco storage or something like that.
Yes.
So it ceased production before Prohibition started? Okay.
Yes. So he AS took it from the ground up, and he took it nationwide. I mean, obviously it started small, but he grew it and kept growing it. And as you said, I mean, it was all over. We have receipts from Texas, advertisements, Arkansas, Florida, just all over. AS started to become, kind of older in age, and so he gave it off to his son, E.W. Winstead. And E.W. had it for a while, and his marketing started getting a little bolder. He was really following his father's footsteps, but really pushing it out there as well. Unfortunately, they both succumbed to illness. I think E.W. ended up passing away pre-Prohibition. And with the passing of E.W., the brand died with it. So nobody else in the family wanted to take it up. But there was a time, Winstead Distillery, I mean, they were very big. I mean, you're talking 600 barrel production weeks, very big operation there. So, and with it, Silkvelvet died, which was a shame looking back at it. I mean, it's such a good product. The packaging alone was just
beautiful bottle.
Beautiful
I love that you went
bottle.
with a kind of the old school look cork. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
But it sat there and lay dormant for 100 years.
100 years.
Or
And then-
like say, asleep.
Asleep.
Yeah.
Asleep for 100 years.
Sleep for 100 years.
Nice touch.
And your dad drops this, wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
And you do the work and you find out what it would take. You get it done.
Mm-hmm.
And you're about ready to, you have a partner here. You found a distillery that's up and coming. You want to talk a little bit about Western Kentucky Distillery and what you guys do, or?
Yeah, so I mean, as far as the brand goes, I've known Jacob now for 5-6 years now, and it does. And you know, we've become good friends, and you know, my bourbon journey started before him, but you know, he's opened my eyes to a lot of good bourbons as well. Now that I'm very seasoned in bourbon, I see how talented he is, and he won't brag on himself, but he you know, he's an 8th generation master distiller. His father worked at Jim Beam, his granddad worked at Jim Beam. You can trace it all the way back to 1791.
Wow.
With Samuel Call, who was distilling at the same time as Elijah Craig, a lot of the pioneers of bourbon. Actually, if you go on Whiskey Advocate magazine this month, you'll see the families of bourbon, and the Russells, the Beams, you go down the list, and the Calls are right there with it. So
It's fantastic.
it'll show you how, you know, how much him and his family know. So when we were looking at bringing back Silkvelvet, it was the label. I mean, the Winsteads did so good back then. They were ahead of their time, really, with packaging and everything else. So we knew we had a good label. We knew we had a good story. But, you know, being a bourbon nerd, we wanted to make sure the bourbon was also good. Something that, hey, you buy this for the package, the story, but you're really buying it for the juice.
You buy it the first time for the package and the story, and the second time
Right.
it's because
It's
the juice
for the-
is good.
Yeah, you're not coming back again if the bourbon is not any
Right.
good. So, so you know, Jacob was there from day
Yeah.
one, and you know, we asked him if he'd come along the journey and you know, help us get this going. And you know, Jacob has tasted every single barrel we've put into a bottle. So, so yeah, there's nobody better.
Tried some more today.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before we sat down to start the episode, I told Jacob that I was going to try not to fanboy because I am a huge fan of your work, and so pleased to have you here at the house and in the turret. But I've had this pour in front of me for about 15 minutes now, and we like to say we drink bourbon and talk about it, and we've done some pretty good talking. Let's start drinking. Can you tell us what we have in front of us?
Sure. So this is a about 6.5-year-old 75 corn, 21 rye, and 4 malted barley.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit higher corn. We're super proud of it. I think it goes very well with the name Silkvelvet. It's silky, kind of smooth.
Now, I think the last time we talked a little bit about notes and that kind of stuff, and you're very much like in the same camp we are. It's like, yeah, that's good. No, I don't like that. And you can do all the fancy things, but you have told me before that you really just like to experience the bourbon. So
Yeah, I'm not a poet. I'm not a bourbon poet
Yeah.
that, you know, makes up stuff, but
Leave that to the marketing people.
Yeah,
Help sell the
But,
product.
you know, it's sweet and spicy.
Yeah.
If you get those, and smooth, no burn. This is 107 proof. So I just think it's a really good representation of what Kentucky bourbons should be. And we're really excited
So at
about
107, what do you go in the barrel at?
120.
120,
It's
okay.
120. We cut it down. We experimented a lot with the
Different.
proof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we tried barrel proof.
Yep.
We did, I don't know, every proof you can think of.
Yeah.
And then we settled on 107. We just kind of thought that was.
I missed my
a good
invitation
spot.
for
I was
that.
about to say, Aaron, we chose the wrong professions, buddy. Aaron,
Number 4 char on all of our barrels.
and now this is an early
This
Early-
is
This is number one.
barrel number one.
This was,
barrel frickin' number 1, ladies and gentlemen. Wow. What you got, Aaron?
Man, there's some fruitiness on this that I didn't. I've had barrel 2, and there is some fruitiness on barrel 1 that I did not pick up.
And the nose is totally different on this
Yeah.
one than the second one I've had.
100%.
Of course, Chuck was the only fortunate one here. Other than I think Brent, did you have one prior?
This is the first taste I've ever had.
Yeah, me too.
And,
Chuck came in and rubbed it in that he had a taste.
Yeah, I mean, we get a lot of fruit
Yeah.
notes as well.
Yeah.
Fruit
Yeah.
and spice. And
This is fantastic. Anybody can drink this bourbon.
Yeah.
This is a great bourbon for anybody. I don't care where you are on your journey. This is fantastic.
I got to visit the distillery several weeks ago before the release, and they were kind enough to bring out some product from Barrel One. My wife was with me, and I was working on a newspaper story about the rebirth of Silkvelvet, and we took our first sip and we just looked at each other. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
And our hometown has been so excited. I think Barrel One had already been sold out. You released to the public Barrel number 2.
Yes.
And how long did it take to sell out Barrel 2?
30 minutes, if that. The reception has been insane, and we can't thank Henderson enough. I mean, and everybody that's been involved with it. We knew that we had a good package. I obviously knew the product was great.
It is.
But it was, you never know until you release out what the reception's been, and Henderson has just been phenomenal embracing this brand, just helping us along the way, get the word out, and this is just the beginning.
Zach told me that on his launch party day, he said, I just have this bad feeling that nobody's going to show up. I said, I think you're going to be fine.
Yes.
People were in Brian's liquor store that afternoon before the launch party. You guys were there signing bottles. Your dad and brother were signing bottles. You're in line to wait to get your bottle autographed, and then a downtown restaurant that normally is closed on a Monday evening was open, and it was packed, and people were super excited, and the mayor was there, the county judge executive was there, lots of friends. It was a great.
Well, it sounds awesome. I wish I could have been there. So I had to work. Aaron texted me. He said, "Hey, you want me to get you a bottle?" I thought, well, I'll just stop by a beverage barn on the way home and grab one. No.
Yep.
30 minutes. That's awesome, man. Yeah. That's really cool.
Oh, I knew it was going to be a big hit. My sales rep came to me for Heritage. It's Heritage, right?
Yep.
She said, we're getting, I believe, 35 cases of this product. We're trying to get some pre-sales in. She said, I think if you buy 3 cases, you get $1 off or something like that. I said, well, I want 30. I'm not trying to be greedy. You're getting 35. I want 30 of them. Can you give me 30? Of course, I didn't get 30. I got much less of that, but...
We've sold through, I want to say 2 cases, maybe 2.5.
Oh, and that's by the pour, yeah.
That's by the pour.
Yeah.
You got some in today while I was there.
We got 2 more cases. That's Barrel 4 we got today, which we will try here shortly.
Danielle rubbed it in as I walked in. She says, "Yeah, there's our in that box right there." It's like, I still can't have any, thanks.
Is this the next one?
That's barrel number 2. If that's okay to.
Yeah.
It's
I'm gonna go ahead.
So as you go through these, there's gonna be these. This is a single barrel product, so each one is going to be different.
Sure.
But there are some things that are also similar between them, and the biggest one between those is that smooth finish on the backside. It's still complex, like you said. Anybody can drink this bourbon, but the seasoned bourbon drinker as well, there's a lot to appreciate and there's a lot in that front and mid palate, a lot of complexity. As you saw in Barrel 1, that floral note at the end is just, oh my gosh. So there will be some consistency with it, but each bottle is going to be different. So
which is exciting.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it.
Yeah.
So I usually show my stupidity when I try to guess what some of these notes are, but a wise man said, what do you remember? What does it remind you of? And this one gives me a little bit more leather than the first one. Does anybody else get that, or am I way off here?
I get a little bit of leather licorice on the nose.
Okay.
I'll let you know if you're right or wrong.
No, I'm sure you will.
Just playing.
If you come up with some bubblegum crap, I'm gonna
Hey,
kick you out. I don't know what I'll do.
just ask. I'm just kidding.
This has been so popular that we were driving back home from going out to lunch this afternoon, and my wife's phone rings, and it's a friend calling to report Silkvelvet's back on the shelves.
There's a network out there already.
There is.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we were answering calls most of the day. People want to know, when's it coming in. Of course, we're at the mercy of the distributor to show up and deliver the product, and they don't always show up at the same time. So once it came in, it was chaos. People coming in and out the door, buying it, and yeah.
Sounds like we're gonna have to bottle some more. So.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yes.
So tell us about the future. Where are we going here?
Yeah. So, this being a Henderson brand, we wanted to bring it back to Henderson first. That was our goal the whole time. But we're also have some of that Colonel Winstead in us as well. So
yeah.
this is just the beginning. Going into 2025, we're going to really blow this thing up and scale it up to where we're statewide and even further as 2025 goes on. We've got some partnerships going, even potentially being able to ship up to 45 states next year. So
Wow.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
the cases are going to be coming. We're ramping up, but right now, like I said, we wanted Henderson first to be able to enjoy this and get their hands on it and embrace it. Yeah.
I love it. Absolutely
appreciate
love it.
And you also are doing new make already.
Yes, we have barrels set back. We're aging barrels. We have some of the first run barrels that Jacob made out at Western Kentucky. So we tasted actually some of that today, a year and a half old. And at a year and a half, oh my gosh, we're excited. We're excited.
Should have brought some of that.
We should have, yes. And yeah.
Well, sometimes you don't want to say, but you're doing full size barrels?
Yes.
Palletized, right?
Palletized. Yeah.
That means stacked vertically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, palletized has been around, Scotch and Irish whiskey have been doing palletized for forever. Bourbon, we're stuck in tradition a lot of the times. And don't get me wrong, side fill is great. I mean, but the cost of side fill and all, it gets super expensive in that.
More labor intensive.
More
some
labor
costs,
intensive.
yeah.
I know the barrel guys at
Clocking
Western
the
Kentucky
barrels,
love, prefer the palletized versus.
And we built our warehouses a little bit differently than some of them. Palletized got a bit of a bad name in the past because a lot of them were concrete bomb shelters, basically.
Oh, okay.
So there wasn't a lot of aging. But ours are metal sided, non-insulated. We have windows between our rows. We've got a lot of spacing. We're on a hill. We get a lot of wind, a lot of airflow. We have fans.
So what's the height of the rick house?
27 feet.
So you're essentially stacking just two pallets?
6 high.
6 high?
6 barrels.
Okay, yeah.
But
So it's
we've
good
been very
consistency
happy.
because
So-
of they're all stacked essentially the same temperature
Yeah.
throughout the
And
warehouse.
the physics are going to be such that it's going to go in and out of the wood pretty
Oh, yeah.
dramatically.
But you know how it is in Kentucky. We get all
Right.
4 seasons sometimes in the same day.
In the same day, yeah. Yeah, we call that Tuesday.
Yeah.
That's true.
So right now, these are single barrels. 6 years from now, or 5 years, or 4.5 years from now, when you've got some of your new make aged 6.5, whatever years, do you expect to still be single barreling, or do you think you'll go to small batch?
So, I mean, as you scale up, you're going to have to go small batch at some point, but there's always going to be a single barrel line of Silkvelvet. So, I mean, my favorite part of the job is being able to sit with this man and taste bourbon. So, I mean,
our offices are right beside each other.
yeah, right beside each other. So, I mean, so we're always going to peruse the warehouse and find barrels that people are going to enjoy. We're bourbon nerds at the heart of it. I mean, we love bourbon. He was born into it. I found it at a later time, but we love bourbon. And so those good, you go through the house and you find those really good barrels. I mean, you just want to share it. So
Yeah.
They might
this
be
is-
empty before.
got a bunch of holes in
So I mean, this is the best way we can share those barrels with the public. I mean, obviously we can't invite everybody in to try them every day, even though we wish we could.
You can invite me.
you would definitely have an invite. But I mean, this is our other way of sharing these with the masses. That those bourbons we find, those honey barrels. Yeah.
So you said something interesting there that I've never heard anyone say. You said that at some point, once you get to scale, you have to do a small batch. Is that because some of the single barrels are so obscure that it's something that you don't want to put into the market?
Yeah. So I mean, when you find those honey barrels, we only have so many. I mean, we make a lot of barrels. This man makes a lot of barrels, but there's. When you find those special ones, you don't want to mix them in and out. But also, there's not a plethora of really honey barreled out. And not to say that the bourbon is bad or good, but when you find those exceptional barrels, those are what you would need to find for the single barrels. The other barrels are great.
Yeah.
But I mean, as
you marry them together,
marrying them together,
Gotcha.
you're losing that single barrel taste of it. But to scale up to go to 45 states and everything else, we would be on the floor every day. If we had to taste what it takes to get to that
Sure.
level.
Wow.
Sounds like you need to hire somebody.
I know.
I might know that.
I know a couple of people.
So, are you? Is it going to be 6 year? Is that for all
So
Silkvelvet, or is that
yeah,
up
so
for debate?
that is up for debate as of now. As of now, it's a 6-year-old product. We all know how the bourbon industry changes.
Yeah.
I think a 6 to 8 year old is a sweet spot for bourbon.
That is.
I love a 10-year-old. I love a 15-year-old. But as it gets older, that wood, takes over.
Yeah.
So that 6 to 8, there's still the complexity to all those notes that you can still find. So that's where I see it staying kind of in that range, but fluctuating kind of going.
I would think from a business perspective that makes a lot of sense also.
Yeah.
So would you describe each of these as honey barrels?
Yes, very much so.
Oh, that's awesome.
And this, to be sure, this is all Jacob Call distilled bourbon.
And it will be for as long as I can see forward. I mean, he's going to blush with it, but I think Jacob is, one of the best distillers of his generation. When you taste and see what he's done with resurrecting historic brands before, historic distilleries, and building his own as well. What he's done with his family outside of it, with Hemingway Rye and everything else. I mean, top 20 whiskeys in the world 3 times in the last 5 years. I can keep going on and on.
You're going to make me cry.
But I mean,
I see why he's next to you in your office now.
But I just love the whiskey that he's putting out.
He's already got a raise in a
Yeah. Christmas time.
Yeah, we'll talk after this. But no, this is all sincere, and you all are seeing it as well. I mean,
We're Jacob Call fans.
Oh, we are.
No, so when I heard that Jacob Call was, going to come down here and take over the green, or up here, because I believe you were down south, working in South Carolina or somewhere. Florida. Okay. So whenever I heard that you were coming up to Kentucky to help resurrect Green River and their rebranding and all that, I kept saying, they've got to do something with Ozzie Tyler. The juice is absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
And that was a consensus among most people around here. And it was a supersonic aging or whatever that they did. And I think you were the one that really pushed behind it to get away from that and to do the traditional way of bourbon. And then when Green River came out, I mean, it was rave reviews. I mean, and that's obviously due to your distilling and all that. So, yeah. I mean, what you said, Zach, is you hit the nail on the head.
well, and I will go into this a little bit. So what people don't understand on the Ozzie Tyler way, Jacob was making the barrels traditionally. That is a finishing step, is what they did. So even those first barrels that were coming out, they were made traditionally in the right way.
Yeah, they're trying to screw my bourbon up.
They did a good job of that.
Oh, buddy. Wow.
They kind of did.
Well,
So, and that's what happens a lot of times, when you work for somebody else, a lot of the master distillers, we didn't have a lot of say in the marketing and, what they did with branding and stuff like that. So really did push really hard to change to Green River and age longer, and turned out pretty good.
so speaking of great bourbon, Aaron, number 1 was great.
Number 1 was great.
Number 2, even better.
I thought so. I think the difference between number 2 and number 1 was the floral notes from number 1 aren't quite as prevalent in number 2. Number 2 had a little bit more. In my mind, number 2 tasted older. It had a more.
Had that much more spice, maybe?
Yeah, it was a little bit more spicy. It was a little bit more closer to normal. I don't want to say normal bourbon, but you know what I mean, like what you expect from a typical bourbon. It had your vanilla, your caramel, your wood, your oak. But man, that floral note on number 1, that's just special.
Those are both great. It's
special.
just they're just different.
And then I know
Are we
number
being
3,
consistent with what you guys have heard between 1 and 2?
1, that's why we picked number 1 as being 1. That floral note that you find in that's rare in those bourbons that you find. And we've talked about this before. That's one of those notes we try to find in the warehouse.
100%.
Yeah, somebody mentioned bubble gum. It's kind of like a juicy fruit.
100%.
Bubble gum note that I get sometimes.
I can't say bubblegum anymore because
No.
Brent makes fun of me every
That's
time.
right. Every time.
But,
Juicy fruit isn't bubblegum, though. It's
that was a juicy fruit.
Flavored gum, right?
So-
Now, barrel 3, I will tell you, is the guys at the distillery. This is their favorite.
Yeah.
Oh, is that why there's so little of it?
Sorry, gone, right? They've
Oh
gone.
man, smells good.
Man, there is an earthy quality. The rye on this just pops.
A little spicier.
Oh yeah, it is on the nose. It's
That's good.
Got a-
amazing. All three of the noses are
Completely different.
Which they're single barrels. You would expect that.
Yes, but we've,
I've done several single barrels where it's like, oh my gosh, these are very similar. And then you look at where they're aged and so forth, and they're aged in different spots of the warehouses. So yeah,
right, like you said, like we've done barrel picks before, like quite a few, and you can always, normally they're so close. The only one that I can think of that is way far different is Four Roses, like because of all the different mash bills and
and
that
yeast
stuff. But
strands.
with these are 3 different barrels with 3 distinctly different noses and flavor profile.
Well, I think Peerless does some pretty different.
And I think that has to do with we can talk about that later, but I think it has to do with their sweet mash process where
Yeah.
this is, like it says, this is Kentucky's finest sour mash whiskey.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
These all the same lot.
These are all the same line.
All the
That's
same
the
lot.
crazy part.
wow.
it is.
Oh my gosh.
So you're using the same. So by lot, you're saying you're using the same
day.
mash
Same
all the way
filling
through.
day.
Came out of
Yeah.
the same mash tank, right?
Yeah.
Same beer.
Of course, we're making it that, especially at that time, 300 barrels plus a day. So
Yeah.
so there's going to be honey barrels out of that 300 lot.
So barrels 1, 2, and 3,
Mhm.
same
Lot number. Same day's
lot.
production.
same day.
Yep.
Now,
Were they stored pretty close together?
Yep.
Yeah, and this is one of the first
And
things.
this was stored at Green River, so
this was.
the rick houses are totally different than the way you guys
Yeah.
do business.
Yeah. So this was one of the my first educations in bourbon. Probably my favorite day ever at work.
Nice.
Is that when you got the bonus and all the bonuses?
But we went through a warehouse to find the initial release for the historic brand at the old distillery that we resurrected in Green River, and so we went through warehouse A that day, and I'm a kid in a candy store. This is insane to me. I can't believe I'm doing this. But we would try barrels right back to back, sitting side by side in the warehouse, in the same warehouse, same rick, same location, and they would be completely different. And when I say completely different, as you're seeing,
Sure.
there's still similar characteristics.
The
of it.
bones are there.
The bones are there, but there are notes that come out of others that and that was my education. He'd known this for forever, but but yeah, and so that opened my eyes why single barrels I think are the way to go when you're purchasing bourbon as well.
Yeah.
You can have the exact same day's production, but as you see, there are different things in each one that will make it exceptional versus the other.
That's why we got to sample so many.
That's right. That's right.
So,
yeah.
so we've seen trends from everything single barrel to we're going to blend some now. Where are we in our modern day? Are we blending more? Are we doing more single barrels? Is it distillery to distillery? What's the market out there right now?
I think the market, as a bourbon drinker, a bourbon nerd, I still think that pure experience from a barrel is still
Yeah.
the way to go. And don't get me wrong, there's some great things going on in blending as well, and you can do some great things in blending. So I do not knock that at all, but I still think the consumer doesn't get to go through the warehouse like we do every day. So they want to experience what that is in that barrel as it is, So, and when you have somebody as good as this, why not?
Why
show
not?
that off.
Exactly.
So, guys, what do you think? Would you be a Silkvelvet customer? Would you like that?
Yes, Chuck, absolutely.
None of these bottles are leaving this room, Chuck.
I got 2 customers. I can sell those.
I know a guy.
Yeah.
What's that Patty Lovell song? You'll never leave Harlan alive. you'll never leave the turret field.
Pull back a nub, my friend.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all because I've had so many of your products under a variety of labels, and a lot of our favorite bourbons were made by you.
Yeah.
Blue Note.
and
Did you have a cough there?
and the products from your former distillery, this is sensational.
Every
This is
once in a
great
while,
release.
a great story with a great label and a great bottle matches with great juice, and magic things happen, and you guys have captured that.
Sure enough.
So we have a
Well done.
bottle of Green River signed by you at the house in a Green River tin, whatever.
Oh, the ones
Heather
that
was-
Karen would give out? Yeah.
Heather was my wife was making room on the bourbon cabinet, and so I just grabbed it and was getting ready to toss it. And she said, "Stop!" She said, "Open that bottle or open that." And so I opened it and looked and had your signature on it. She said, "We can't throw that away. He makes Silkvelvet."
Well, we can't wait to see what you guys do next.
For sure.
Henderson thanks you for considering us and as part of this journey. Great things are happening with bourbon in Henderson, it seems like these days.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
pretty
glad
cool.
Silkvelvet got reborn where it was born the first time.
100%.
Absolutely.
Well, and maybe I failed to mention this too. We're lifelong. My family is lifelong Hendersonians. So this is not only is this, we're happy that the Henderson has embraced this, but we're happy alone just to see this being revived. If somebody else would have done it, we would be happy with that. This is out there. So we just hope Henderson really, embraces it as they already have. I mean, we are beyond thankful that everybody has. So, yeah, we're beyond ecstatic.
Awesome.
Cool.
Zach, Jacob, thank you for being here. Guys, if it's not in your liquor store yet, it's going to be. You're going to want some Silkvelvet, and we appreciate any comments that you have regarding what your thoughts are. Have you tried it yet? Do you want to try it? Go to Chuck's house. He has more than anybody else. No, go to your liquor store and find it. Go to Beverage Barn. And with that said, did you see the smile on his face when he said that?
No, I'm mad. I wish I had more.
We all wish we had more. And with that said, please drink responsibly.